coconut.
Coconut almonds. They do. It's one of my favorites.
Wow.
It's not to love.
What, Aaron? What's your favorite?
I like the 1,000 grams.
1,000. Payday.
No. It's
Not 1,000 payday.
No, it's like I think it.
1,000 grams.
Oh yeah, 100 grams.
It's just called a bunch of money. I don't know.
You're killing billionaires and getting money from chocolate. Die, billionaires! It's an inside joke. Inside joke.
We don't need to look into it too much.
The nougat, I never got into
Nougat
nougat.
can suck it.
Nougat
Nougat can suck it.
Alicia says, I love almond joy. I do too, girl. I do too.
I don't think I've met anybody who actually said they like almond joy. I've met two now. Two.
In Minnesota, there's a fella that invented a candy bar called like the 7-Up bar or something.
The
seven different flavors of candy bar in one candy bar.
What? Sour Patch. Oh my god. I love Sour Patch.
Sour Patch is good. I did not grow up in an area where someone was trying to make 7-Up candy bars, Aaron.
I'm trying to find the name of that thing. It can't be 7-Up, right?
And we there was this guy, he was called the quest master, and he would ask you a question like a riddle. And if you got it right, you would get a big chocolate bar. And we're not talking about like at the time it was the big share candy bars, like the big block candy bars. It was awesome.
Wow. Oh, men knew 7-Up.
It really was called 7-Up. 7-Up. My Polish grandmother gave away candied or caramel apples, sometimes popcorn, and sometimes the big candy bars. When I hear anything candy apples, I think of this.
Can you hear it?
Probably not.
Oh, it's.
But you know what I mean? Like the whole. Yeah, that. I'm not saying. I'm sure your lovely Polish grandmother was probably a very sweet lady, but I think of like Hansel and Gretel. You know, like get in the oven. That's when I think of candy apple.
Yeah.
You have a deck of tarot.
I did. I brought because I was like, well, since it's spooky season and we're talking about demons and demonic activity.
What's up, AP?
I decided that I would bring this deck to show you guys. This is a relatively new deck for me, and it looks at all of the demons of
and it's called what? The Occult?
The Occult Tarot.
Mm.
Now, I was raised kind of pagan, new agey, spiritual, and so in kind of the pagan Wiccan world, people don't really believe in demons. It's like it's thought that demons are a Christian paradigm that, you know, we don't acknowledge. It's more like a demon is a spirit of the mind. It's not like some evil creature coming out of hell to come get you, or our understanding of demons is the metaphor of that which haunts us in our minds. So,
well, which is interesting too, because you're talking about metaphors and everything. And earlier this evening, we're talking about the simple fact that in the Tanakh or the Jewish Bible, right? Christians will call it the Old Testament. The word for devil or demon is goat.
Oh, that's right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so here I am. Okay, so I'm raised pagan, and everyone's all like, oh, you know, the goat devil thing, that's just a ripoff of Pan from Greece, yada yada yada. And then he told me about that, and I was like, it goes deeper. It's not just so.
Right.
I think
it just means goat. That's all. That's the symbology. Now, is that saying every goat that a Jewish person at the time? This is the. By the way, that was my first album that I purchased. By the way, I'm dating myself. Yeah.
So Alicia says her Polish grandmother would wear a mask on the porch and scare kids. And still on the porch holding a big bowl of candy. I'm like, that's
awesome.
Epic.
She's Christmas Krampus.
Yeah, it's a scary time of Christmas too.
Dude, speaking about scary Christmas, there's Christmas trees in the Cub Foods already. It is too soon. Too soon. Back up, Christmas. So anyway,
you're terrible.
Back to the deck. So here I am. I've known people or occultists who have studied the goetia, and I just never really was into that because my sort of impression of demons and demonology was that it's Christian, like it's all based in Christian paradigms, and most of the entities that we understand as demons are demonized gods in the first place. So I was like, I don't know if I want to buy into these paradigms and read about this stuff, right? But stuff has a way.
I don't blame you either.
Stuff has a way of bringing itself into your life, right? And it will show you that it's time to look at it, and it's time to learn it, and it's time to explore it. So I got this deck, and I also got this book, Stellas Daemonum, and I have this bracelet to represent the spirit I'm about to talk about, because the spirits will come to me. They will make themselves known to me, and I won't always hear their name. I'll usually get like an image, and then I'll have to go figure out who they are. And there was...
What's the image? What would be like an image?
So in this particular entity that I'm about to talk about, what had happened was I was doing a practice seance with my little crew in this space, and this entity appeared to me, and it was basically a man with a horse's head. And I was looking at it, and now I'm someone who's into Persephone. She is a Greek goddess, right? Her brother, she literally has a brother who is a magical horse. So Persephone has ties and relationships to horses. So I found it interesting that this sort of horseman came to me, and I decided to go on a hunt to figure out who he was and whether or not I could find an image that related to this entity.
Okay.
And that is how I came across orobas. This is what the spirit looked like to me. And so I wanted to so I'm going to share with you guys what the Daemonum says about this guy, and then you can tell me what so this guy here knows how to read Hebrew, apparently. And he was looking at this deck earlier, and he's like, oh, I don't know if this is like real or some...
There's a horse button on there.
Is there? Oh, that's right. Where's the horse? I said, oh.
So, but orobas is an answer question about the past, present, future. That's like some Back to the Future type stuff. And then gives dignities. What does that mean? Gives dignities.
So, I mean, I would assume that's sort of like in the era that this was written about or conceived of, give dignities would be like wealth and privilege. You're somebody that's given preference within a situation, the red carpet, so to speak. Gotcha. Someone with clout and power.
Gotcha.
And what it says here
somebody
is...
that would be like sitting on the porch.
Yeah.
Giving out a big bowl of candy.
Grants the favor of friends and foes and is a faithful servant.
Gotcha.
So I found this guy. And so part of the reason I got this deck of cards was so I could start learning about these guys. Because I'm like, well, now that one has come to me, it's like Pokemon. You got to collect them all. Kind of, and going back to like
them all.
You got to collect them all, like Pokemon. And so kind of going back to Tarot, the movie, where it's like there's this way that like spirits are portrayed, particularly malevolent spirits, particularly demonic spirits are portrayed. Again, it's like this sort of evil, malicious, malevolent, out to hurt, out to harm,
right.
Destroy the host that it's in for the sake of its own kind of sick pleasure. And people who actually are into the goetia study these sort of entities and understand them to be, not all of them are malevolent. And demon is actually comes from daemon,
Right. And
allegedly, and which means hidden ones in Greek.
so, and it's really fascinating too, is because this whole concept of, I'm not saying evil doesn't exist in the world. Like, there are clearly times in history where there are people that did some really horrific and evil things. But this dichotomy of evil versus good isn't necessarily part of the Christian theology either, which is fascinating. Like, that was a heresy. That,
Right.
like, it's often depicted as the angel on one shoulder and
Right,
the devil.
right.
This dichotomy, that's it doesn't work that way.
Right.
That it's not like this.
So where'd the devil come from?
Where did the yes? So I mean, like Beelzebub again, like these are entities that started as one thing and got corrupted, demonized, had their mythos changed over time, allegedly. Depending on how far back in time you go. So the
What's
Stellas,
Stellas?
Stellas Daemonum is basically a compilation of like 15 other grimoires about demons.
What is a grimoire?
So a grimoire is basically a book of spells.
Gotcha.
In layman's terms, a book of spells. Generally speaking, a grimoire will have their recipes, the sigils, the prayers, how they did it, and as well as also like information on like how well it worked, what happened after they did the operation, so
it's like kind of a
it's sort of like a book of
theory,
shadows. So,
but like theory, and then it kind of worked or didn't work, or it works in this setting or not.
Exactly.
Diary.
Right. So this particular author went through like 15 different grimoires from like the 14th century into the 18th century, collated all of these different grimoires as far as like the demons that were present and how they were described and what positions they held, because it's believed that the demons have a huge hierarchy.
What's interesting though, in Hollywood, you're reading all these like old dusty books in grimoire, and you're going to eventually die.
Right.
Which is really interesting, because I'm sure Mr. David Crowhurst is just living well, probably going to Starbucks, buying coffee.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, this is an expensive. The hardcover is an expensive.
But you know
volume,
what I'm saying, though.
Like
in Hollywood, it'd be like, oh, you read some grimoire, some old dusty like Indiana Jones type situation.
And like, no, this particular grimoire is modern.
But he read some old books about.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like in Hollywood, like in Tarot the book. I mean, I'm sorry, Tarot the movie, right? They find some old dusty cars and they all die except for 2 people.
Right.
This guy's still making books.
Yes.
Which is
well, I mean, because his shit's not cursed. And also, like, again, like you asked earlier, like, is there a difference between looking at the cards and reading the cards?
Right.
Or it's like, you can read a book all day long. That doesn't mean that the information in it is going to conjure entities for you. Although I will have to say that if your imagination is strong, you will conjure entities because you're thinking about it and you're creating that resonance and attracting those entities to you. So you do have to be careful about what kinds of media you consume, because your imagination can affect your reality. However, that being said, like,
we don't want to go into a satanic panic mode
situation
because I'm a big player
and I'm not generally about conjuring per se.
Yeah.
Just a lot of entities will come to me and work with me for a period of time, and this particular one came up in a seance, and I wasn't expecting it. And it kind of to me was like,
when was the seance?
This was like within 24 months. And so I had this vision, and I went on this quest to figure out who this entity was. Started looking into the Goetia, came up with this guy, and in the Stellas Daemonum, he is under Auras, Auras, and but he's also he's either known as Auras or Orobas. And there were some things in here that talked about him, like he answers all questions truly and without deceit, is very faithful to the conjurer, allowing none to be tempted. But one of his and so he's definitely someone who's benefic, protective, honest, with great knowledge of lofty subjects such as cosmogony and theology. So there's a lot that suggests that he's a benefic spirit. But one thing that I found interesting about this particular spirit is that it says in his malefic presentation, he has the ability to make people sick with shame.
Oh,
Or if you're feeling sick with shame, it could be that you're afflicted with the
well, they
spirit.
just call that guilt.
Well, right?
Isn't that guilt?
Is it guilt? What do you think? Is sick with shame the same as guilt?
Sick with shame. Well, no,
And so
I guess you're right though, because like if you could be a victim and still feel those words.
right.
So
Right.
okay.
So yeah, so there was things about this spirit that when I thought about my life or the things that I had been through, I was like, I could see how this spirit would represent like challenges that I've been through, things that I've had to face. And like it kind of struck me in like trying to get to know this spirit and understand what its message was, that I kind of decided that demons in general were about showing you where you're wounded, showing you where you're traumatized, showing you where you need healing. They're like this sort of like divine mirror. They're even if they are like malevolent, they're coming into your world because of a trauma or
Right.
some kind of wounding, and they're there to teach you about
Well,
that.
and malevolent is just Latin for mal is bad. That's all. Just bad.
Just bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad.